And I would like to let people know that logical fallacies make perfect sense, especially in an academic situation. However, I would like to let you know that these are also opinions and perspectives. And I would also like you to know that Marquettism, in our perspective, we believe that you must consider the arguer, the speaker must be considered as well, and their motivations, and also if we should address them as an individual, and mostly we should.
You know what? That's a good point. That is a good point as far as what you said. I only caught the end, but that point was good. Logical fallacies are truly only good if you're in like some formal debate. But generally, it doesn't really hold any weight because you should attack people on all facets and all corners. If you're really going to be ruthless and you really want.
And I would like to let people know that logical fallacies make perfect sense, especially in an academic situation. However, I would like to let you know that these are also opinions and perspectives. And I would also like you to know that Marquettism, in our perspective, we believe that you must consider the arguer, the speaker must be considered as well, and their motivations, and also if we should address them as an individual, and mostly we should.
You know what? That's a good point. That is a good point as far as what you said. I only caught the end, but that point was good. Logical fallacies are truly only good if you're in like some formal debate. But generally, it doesn't really hold any weight because you should attack people on all facets and all corners. If you're really going to be ruthless and you really want.
And I.
All right. All right. So yeah. So that was okay. All right. So yeah. So that was Marquette. The same center reacting to Jordan Peterson. I want to go ahead and start. Matter of fact, let's just start with agree or disagree with the video. Let's start with it. Let's start with Fresh.
Agree that you should.
You want me to rephrase?
Every facet. Like when you say to agree with the video, there's multiple points of view. Like, what you gotta tell me what are you asking me?
So just for the you mind if I just state it for the audience?
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah. So both of the guys are making the point that being logical and reasonable and using logical terminology and stuff like that is good in academic conversations, but outside of academic conversations, especially people are expressing opinions and perspectives, that stuff is not as useful, and you should consider who it is that you're addressing, what that person's character is like. So, for instance, they're breaking down Jordan Peterson on the Jubilee show, where Jordan Peterson is dealing with, I think, 20 atheists or whatever the case may be. And so they're talking about is Jordan. So their point, give a little bit more insight and what they're coming from, is Jordan Peterson is a guy who struggles with addiction, who struggles with depression and stuff like that. They say that he's not the kind of guy you should really get advice from. So they're saying, and so as they're giving their opinions about what he's saying on the show, they're also giving opinions about him. And they're saying that all the logical stuff is cool for academic conversations, but as we give opinions and perspectives on there, you should address the person and who they are and whether or not they're a credible source and things of that nature. So that's part of where he's coming from on that. And they said other things too that I may not have addressed just now, but hopefully that'll help a little bit with the picture. And so the question is just, do y'all agree with that? Do you think that you should that logical terminology and logical concepts are really just more for academic conversations, or do you think they pretty much should apply at all times and all types of conversations? And do you believe that you should address all facets, including addressing the messenger as well as the message?
I think it should be used across any sort of conversation or any environment, because once you start taking into account any of those circumstantial instances, you remove the ability to take what the speaker is speaking at face value. There's always underlying context. And the problem with having underlying context is, oh, you know what? My fault. We're going with agree, disagree. That's on me. Disagree.
Bear?
I disagree. You should never throw logic out the window.
Victor?
I disagree. I need all the information. I never throw information away.
All right, Volk.
And I definitely disagree as well.
Okay, so I can you do it because they all gave their reasons. Bear said he shouldn't throw logic out the window. Victor said he need all the information. What was the other question you wanted to ask the panel? Vulcan? Was that they gave their whys already? I don't know. Fresh.
So I'll just give my why, and if we want to keep on going with this, we can. So for me, the reason why you can't just leave logical terminology and things of that nature for just academic conversations is because most people don't learn through academic conversations. Most conversations are casual. Once you get out of school, and I would argue even in school, most of the conversations aren't academic conversations. But who knows what actually he's defining by academic conversations? I don't know what he necessarily means by that. But most of the conversations in the barbershop, at work, people will consider casual conversations. If you were to nitpick somebody's words during 99% of the conversations you have every day, they're going to be like, come on, man, what are you doing? Chill. Because they don't consider them to be academic conversations. But logic and reason always applies. When you're having conversations with your kids or with your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend, whatever the case may be, they start contradicting themselves and saying things that are asinine, you're going to hold them accountable for that. Out of love and out of respect for y'all's relationship and their betterment and dignity for yourself. So I think that people that like these guys that are saying at times you should suspend logic and reason are looking for a reason to be able to assert their own opinions and perspectives in place of reason and logic. That one of the guys on there, the Saint in the Center, he's a big time guy on YouTube. But both of these guys are big time guys on YouTube. There's already been like 2 or 3 videos online about him being a cult leader. You know, whether you agree with that or not, that's not my point. I've just noticed he's a very sharp man as far as intelligence. And he understands epistemology and logic pretty well from what I've been able to ascertain from his videos. But he commits to genetic fallacy a lot. He'll attack the person. He'll say, because Jordan Peterson struggles with addiction and depression and stuff like that, he's not somebody you should listen to. So basically what he's saying, unless you're basically me or you're somebody that I deem good enough for you to listen to, then you should listen to them. It sets up this, you have to be perfect in order to, nirvana fallacy, what the technical term would be called the nirvana fallacy. Saying that if something ain't perfect, that it's not good enough. And then where does that end? I mean, could we disqualify him from being listened to because he's saying that it's okay to suspend logic and reason at times? That's pretty dangerous.
Well, it's definitely manipulative. This is the same kind of tactic that pastors use all the time. Religious leaders, cult leaders, ideologically motivated people. Like when it comes down to the Taliban, the Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, any Boko Haram.
Girlfriends use it, boyfriends use it. When they say, that's my feelings.
The sisterhood, red pill, anybody that's like labeled themselves and put themselves out in front of something, they gotta have an impermeable stance on something. They have to be right. Everything has to come back to them being right. You know,
how many of y'all's girlfriends have said, I don't want to be logical right now? Well, I know I've experienced that in my life numerous times.
I want to be logical right now. This is the only time.
You know, those women didn't make the cut for me. Like if they said something like that, I was like, oh, you ready to break up? Because like when I tell you the truth, oh, now you ready to hear the truth. Oh, you fixing to get out of here. You ready to break up.
That's how I got stuck with them because okay, now I see what's going on. You throwing all your trash on my side of the aisle, man.
Hey, look. So they don't make it past that. But now I think that there's some psychological imprint. I say this a lot. We all want to do the right thing. And then we want to get better at the right thing. to the point where we're pursuing perfection. That's what repetition is, right? And then when we get something that comes across in front of us, we've rehearsed what we're about to experience so well that it's like, damn, that person's so sharp, because we're passionate about something, you know. Like, you start changing the way that you deliver your message. Like, you go from, like, when somebody says all men cheat, I started saying, well, if all men cheat, that means all women are side chicks. So stop using all of this all-encompassing words. Leave room for the exception. That's why I say I need all of the information, and I need discernment. And so now you have to increase the intangibles that go into your psychological imprint, decide if this is a disciplined decision or an undisciplined decision.
Mm.
And because, like, what's the goal? You know what I'm saying? What's the motivation of the person? Because, like,
hold on, Victor, let's get everybody here. First, I don't think you got to give your whys for why you disagree with this video.
I'm gonna just keep it to the ability to have a conversation. Once you remove logic from it, you foist the responsibility on the communicator to make assumptions about what you know, what you like, what you're thinking, how you're thinking about it, your past experiences. And the problem with that is there's no way that you can, as the communicator, that you can predict those things with 100% accuracy. So that communication, almost by definition, is going to be ineffective. Now, you also leave room for deception when you allow the receiver to choose whether or not they tell you these things, right? So and if you allow them to kind of sit on the laurels of, well, you should consider these things, you allow them an escape, and that's really what that mindset is built to do, is allow an escape. With logic, you can pin someone down to just the facts. Without it, there's always room to wiggle out based on how you feel, or how you were feeling at that very moment, or your past trauma and those types of things. So it doesn't allow for an effective communication or conversation. So it's you should never throw out logic. You should always keep it.
Yeah, that's the safe net.
And you can never hold somebody accountable. If somebody can choose to have logic and reason suspended, then how could you hold that person accountable?
Just go off my name. That's
Just
basically what he's saying.
Yeah, go off who I am.
When logic is out, there's no guidelines. There's no parameters to work on.
Structure.
Because logic is gone. So now we're going off how we feel. And you can feel one way 1 minute and 1 minute the next minute. There's nothing solid to stand it on. You know what I mean?
That's when you get that. That's when you get that AI, the articulate idiots. They love this type of stuff.
Well, and my thing is, like, you know, at best, I would say it's articulate idiots. But I like what you said earlier, Victor. I think some of these guys are downright evil.
Doing it on purpose.
They're downright evil. They're not idiots, and they're very articulate. They know exactly what they're trying to do. They're building their following.
Yep. It's just like when we say women are using word salad. That's all it is. When you throw logic out the window, it's like, you ever listen to a tape and it flipped over and it's like and start getting all garbled. That's what it sounds like to people that think. It's like, we just gonna let you talk until you finish, and when you skip the song.
I do want to ask Volker, why should we emphasize the evil part? Why do you think that's important for the audience to know that this rhetoric is evil?
I think there's an implicit reflex to assume when somebody's doing the wrong thing, it's because they have a lack of understanding about something. And because that's typically people's reflex, because they want to assume the best about all parties, what happens is you open yourself up to people that are just evil. That person may not, and this goes, if you're in the 40 laws of power, you see that in the 40 laws of power, that you should just assume the person knows what they're doing. The reality is that sometimes things are happening wrong or incorrectly. You know, Victor used an example of pastors, and I've seen this many times. And this is not just exclusive to churches at all. So please don't mistake me right there. But, you know, I've seen many times where, as somebody who studies doctrine and studies teaching, and then I'm seeing a church do something that's improper or incorrect. And so my natural assumption early on was, oh, they just don't know. This is a big book. You can't get everything right. I know I don't have everything right. Let me just go and show them. And then I go and show them, and they're like, no, we're not doing that here. God told me something else. And so you realize that, oh, it's not that they're not aware this is written here. They say it doesn't apply to them. And so then you realize it's not ignorance at all. They're setting up themselves to be their own God.
Politicians do it all the time. Like, that's what people felt about Kamala. You know what I'm saying? Like, you remove the burden of proof on the words that she used and being able to describe whatever her strategy was, and she lost damn near 70% of her voter base just because she was talking.
Yeah, but I want to emphasize this: it's evil on the person who's disseminating the bad information, but it's also can be evil on the people who are not doing their due diligence and who are just blindly following somebody who's saying things that they already want to believe.
It's lazy.
It's lazy. I'll say it's lazy at best, and at worst, it's another form of the worst kind of evil. I don't want to have to think. I want to just be able to put it off on somebody else if I'm wrong.
That's a lack of accountability. So now if it goes wrong, I got to blame somebody else instead of myself, even though I had the ability to do my own research and come to my own conclusions.
Yep. That's why, like, when you listen to on the back end of it, let's just say they don't take any accountability, right? Then they don't like the way it turns out. The language that people use to define the folks that didn't pay attention is people that complain. And complainers they fall into two. They meet the threshold for two things. The reason that they complain, they don't qualify or they can't afford something, and it doesn't have to do with money. It's about character. It's knowledge. Knowledge affords you understanding. You know what I'm saying? The character part affords you access to reciprocal, like-minded relationships and conversations. So most complainers are around each other. And then they are usually of a lower IQ in performance, discipline, and everything you could think of. That's why character. Yeah, character is the main thing, because that's what you do. You know what I'm saying? Like that's when I say people are living in their feelings when they're complaining all the time. If you're complaining, you're so far from a solution when you're complaining. Because you're an undisciplined thinking person. A disciplined thinking person will generalize what makes sense and what doesn't, and then say, if I want to solve the problem, then I'm going to go over here with the parts that amount to, like doing some solid testing to figure out if I can solve the problem.
Yeah, I'm gonna do some peer review. I'm gonna get some other eyes looking at this thing. Absolutely right.
You're not. I do want to I want Bear to chime in too. Anything you want to add to what everybody's saying about this topic?
I mean, I didn't have to chime in because they covered all points. These boys on point. They back the same way.
All right, cool. So, this is why I want to ask. So why, when you see, especially in Black YouTube, because these guys are reacting to Jordan Peters, two Black gentlemen, why don't you? I'm going to ask. I guess I asked everybody. You don't hear people accusing these people of doing evil work just in the intellectual realm. Why is that? Let's start with Fresh. Why do you think that is?
Why no one's accusing them of being evil?
Yeah.
I think most people are not thinking that deep, and then even the ones who are not going to demonize people from their own community. So it's a fatal flaw that we as Black people have. We're definitely afraid to criticize or be critical of people who look like us, even when they're doing wrong.
Victor?
You don't have enough success yet. We wait for you to become successful to say you're part of Illuminati.
Yeah. All right. The reason I was asking is because you see a lot of people critiquing other people online, but they don't bring up the moral component. You rarely hear that within our community. What about you, Bear? What's your thoughts?
A lot of people ain't looking that deep.
Yeah.
A lot of people on YouTube, they're not looking that deep, so they see it at the surface. And then the ones that see it for what it really is, like you said, they turn a blind eye. I mean, it's like...
And that's what they was, I think Voka and Fresh all alluded to that. That's Fresh said laziness, but I think Voka said one of the worst kind of evil. Voka, you want to give your thoughts on the question?
Well, I think if the question is about, why do people go more towards ignorance as opposed to the person that's poor moral character?
It's easier.
It's definitely easier for sure. And then we do live in a society now where it's relativistic. There's no right, there's no wrong. Whether people go scientism and say that we're all just evolved broccoli anyway, and broccoli doesn't have a morality if you're on the more intellectual, naturalistic side, or if you're on the more spiritual side and you're into Baha'i faith, or all roads lead to Rome, or there's no one way that's correct. Everything is everything, and everything is God anyway. So, what you say is up and I say is down. It's all well and good, and left and right is the same. So I think because we live in that world of relativism, people are less inclined to make moral judgments, especially if it's not affecting them. One time people say something really bad of somebody they don't like. They don't like the person. Then it's like Trump as an example, or Biden if you're on the other side. I don't like him, or if, you got a coworker who does something you don't like, who makes sure to stay after your shift because they show up late. I don't like them, so, but outside of that,
of everything that they say.
Yeah, it's just, well, may I interject? Is this, you don't hear more people talk about the moral component. I know the ignorant part, people say, oh, this person ignorant. I know you just said something about people just not liking people, but rarely you hear, unless it's somebody a part of a church or the Abrahamic faith, most people in the intellectual realm don't mention the virtues of intellectualism.
As Barrett said, most people don't look that deep into it to understand that, because obviously I'm gonna use there's 3, maybe 4 fundamental laws of logic: the law of identity, the law of contradiction, the law of excluded middle, and then some of that like the transitive property, which is A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. Right? We learned that in math class. So the thing is that now the one we most identify with probably is the law of contradiction. If somebody contradicts themselves in conversation, people are like, oh, you contradicting yourself. Or you said you went, you're talking to your girl, hey, look, this guy's texting you. You said you didn't know this guy. Now I'm seeing this guy's been texting you for 2 years. That's an obvious violation of the law of contradiction. At that point, people will say, so then people recognize the immorality in that. But when somebody's doing an ad hominem attack, or they attack the person instead of attacking the argument, people don't identify that as an immoral act as easily as somebody lying, aka contradicting what they said prior. You see what I'm saying? So I think part of it is a slight ignorance, but also that we've already been conditioned to not look that deep into it, and we don't care to look that deep into it. We're mentally lazy.
Because I'll tell you why.
Ignorance is bliss.
That's part of it too. I'm going to wrap all of this up right here. People are emotionally undisciplined, and they come to escape on the internet. They don't come over here to be right. They come over here to be made to feel good.
So, are you not entertained?
Yeah, they come over here for entertainment, man. You know what I'm saying? And they get upset if you're trying to teach something, because you're already over here. It's like you in recess and you know everything. And so the minute that you say anything out the way, like you might be correcting somebody's spelling, they were like, man, get your grammar Nazi ass up out of here. What's the fuck wrong with you being smart? You know what I'm saying?
Niggas hate now.
Yeah, come on. Like, this is the internet is
making me read.
This is where you come celebrate people getting out of prison. You don't celebrate people with college degrees here. You come over here and you celebrate people twerking on the headlights. You don't come celebrate people breaking down Einstein's theory of relativity.
Now, hold on, Vic. I think they could both exist. All right, let's not too much on twerking on the headlights.
We know.
Let them twerk, Vic.
I'm not against it. Hey, you know what I'm saying? Because this is why I be talking about disciplined thinking and undisciplined thinking. You give people you give them social media access to the internet, they're gonna treat it like a tool, right? And then you give it to some other people, they're gonna sell their bodies online and become the tool. So you got a good balance of people that's coming here to live in their emotions, and then there's some people that's using the tool to think and help synthesize discussions and try to figure out, how can I monetize this? This takes thought. This takes real effort. You know what I'm saying? And sitting down and doing stuff that other people would not be willing to do. And they'll be having those articulate idiot discussions about Cardi B, the earth being flat, and the government creating those people are all on the same team. Emotionally undisciplined people will make a baby with the wrong man before they make a sandwich for the right one, and then get up here and complain about their baby daddy is not worth a damn, and they chose it, and so you gonna complain. Those are the what I tell you about the language of complaints. It's just a group of people that's gonna be completely immersed in that. You know, they come online, they don't vote, and then they complain about politics. They complain about the food. They complain about being fat, but then they doing it with a 10-piece lemon pepper wet.
That's why the algorithm is so effective, because it's only going to show you things that you want to see.
Correct.
So once you set your preferences and your biases, it's only going to, so to you, that's your whole ecosystem.
Yeah. It's your echo.
All right, fellas. Good topic.
You're tuning in to the Vulcan Soapbox.
It's your show, Vulcan. Come on, man.
What's going on, everybody?